Welcome to Whole Team Eats Podcast, a 24/8 media production. Ever wonder who trains your favorite athlete? Join Tim Miller as he takes a look at the behind-the-scenes training of professional and collegiate athletes. Tim connects with trainers, athletes, and others in the sports community to share their stories. This podcast is dedicated to highlighting the work of athletes and trainers to inspire action and build community.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to an all-new episode of Whole Team Eats Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 7. I'm your host, Tim Miller, and on this show, I sit down with Darren Swift, owner of Swift Speed and Strength Training Academy. From a young age, Darren has always had a passion for sports. This passion for sports, specifically football, led him into training once his playing career was over. It was at this time that he was also starting to coach his son, DeAndre Swift, and emphasized the importance of learning the fundamentals at an early age. On the show, we discussed Darren's role coaching at St. Joe's Prep and why he enjoys working with younger athletes. Mentoring young athletes on and off the field is extremely important to Darren, and he acts as a father figure to several kids that he coaches and trains. Darren instilled principles to be successful into his son, DeAndre Swift, who is now an NFL running back for the Detroit Lions, and uses these same principles with other young athletes that he works with. It's my pleasure to introduce Darren Swift, owner of Swift Speed and Strength Training Academy, to the show. Darren, welcome.
Thank you for having me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and we're excited to have you on the show. Obviously, myself and our co-founder, we've worked with you in the past over the summer with the SwiftFit, first annual SwiftFit running back clinic.
Yes.
We'll talk about that later in the show, but really just wanted to hear about how training has been so far this year and how everything's gone now that we're almost at the end of the year here in 2022.
Yes. It's been pretty good. It's been steady. It's going to pick up now, like you said, especially the Little League guys. They ended, a lot of them are coming back from Florida. This is their last week. The high school kids finished up. We finished up state champions. St. Joe's Prep High School, District 12, 6A. We were Pennsylvania state champs. We just finished up this past weekend. So now high school football is pretty much done. Everything will be picking up, and as well as you have the college guys who aren't in bowl games, they're coming home. I've gotten phone calls with guys that want to actually do some pro day training with me. So yeah, it's about to get real tight.
Yeah, and we know that you work a lot with high-end high school athletes, as you have with St. Joe's Prep, yes. And obviously some college athletes as well. But if you could, just a natural place for a lot of my episodes to start is just tell us about your background, kind of where you grew up and how you got into sports and training and where you are today.
Well, I'm from Northeast Philadelphia, Frankfurt section. Actuality, I went to Delaware Valley College, stopped going to school. I had my son at an early age, so I stopped going to school to help take care of him. And then, actuality, I didn't start off being a trainer. I started off being a barber, but I was always in the sports. I've always been very athletic, very fast. I ran track, played football, played running back, middle linebacker, cornerback, ran track. At the time, it used to be 60 meter, 100 and 200 were the sprints. Now they consider 400 a sprint. So I've been pretty good. I had an opportunity to go get a second call back when I did a camp back in 89, 90. No, I'm sorry, 92. I apologize. In Atlanta. But I was young. And I think that's what really, really drives me. So at the time I was young and stupid and I was doing stuff that I had no business doing, and I wanted to play football on my terms. I didn't want it to be a job. I wanted to do it when I wanted to do it. But again, that was me being stupid and not really knowing and not really having someone that I can talk to. at the time who really may have been able to steer me in the right direction. So I believe that's what really drives me today.
Yeah, and I think one theme we have on a lot of our shows when we talk with trainers is the importance of mentors and having someone there as a mentor, especially at a young age, whether you train a lot of youth and high school athletes. Something we've talked about previously, off the show is, kind of building those athletes from the ground up. But something that is important for everybody, whether they're trying to find their way into their training or trying to find their way as an athlete, a mentor, really in any business or sport, is extremely important. And I think, from you and what I've heard from you is you've kind of taken your mistakes and you've tried to help others avoid those same pitfalls and becoming more disciplined at a younger age and pursuing that athletic career while avoiding certain mistakes. Obviously, you've done a great job, and you said you had a kid at a young age, so maybe that played a role in not being totally focused on football. That's a huge responsibility. And your son, who many people know now, is DeAndre Swift, running back for the Detroit Lions. Yes. He was the running back of at the high school that you now coach at, St. Joe's Prep in Philadelphia. Went on to play at University of Georgia, who right now are in the college football playoff once again, coming off a national championship, and now he's one of the best running backs in the league, only a few years in, DeAndre Swift of the Detroit Lions. So what has it been like mentoring DeAndre and, all the other younger athletes that you have? Like, what are your main focus when you're talking to these kids to try to avoid certain things or try to help them with some discipline?
The biggest thing for me is to make sure that they have a clear understanding of what the world has to offer from both sides, the positive and the negative. I give them a different outlook because I've been on both sides. So I'm pretty well versed. So I'm very straightforward. I'm very open, and I'm very honest. And I think and I'm very transparent. The young men and women and the parents like about me, because I'm gonna give it to you. I'm gonna give it to you raw and uncut. I'm gonna be truthful. The things that you think are glitter, they're not. The things that you think are gold, they may not be. But anything worth having, you gotta work hard for it. And that's what I teach. That's one of my philosophies. That's one of the things I stand on. Is that we're going to work. We want to work hard.
Yeah, and I think you've definitely instilled those values in all of the athletes that you deal with, and your son obviously is showing that to the broader stage at this point, being in the NFL. But when we were at a camp, so the name of the camp, it was the first annual Darren Swift Running Back Clinic.
No, just SwiftFit Running Back Clinic.
SwiftFit Running Back Clinic over the summer, and. Like, can you tell our listeners how you came up with this idea and what it is exactly?
Well, what it is that typically it goes back to when I started. When I was training DeAndre at a young age. I myself, like I said, I played running back, and the things that I was taught coming up from your stance, was the most important, the basics, the fundamentals, the ground root aspects of football, which a lot of programs don't teach anymore because they have so many athletes. You just tell them what to do. There's no real teaching anymore. So I'm the type of person where I'm going to teach you the ground root fundamentals, the principles that was taught to myself that my athletic career, football career was based on. So, and it all starts with something as simple as a 2 or 3 point stance. A lot of kids don't know what a 2-point stance is and a 3-point stance, but they do it. And nobody has taken the time to teach them the fundamentals. Nobody has taught them or has taken the time, something as far as ball placement. What arm does the ball belong in when you're running out in the open field and taking on a contact that you're about to be tackled, how to cover up the ball. Something as simple as that is a big part of playing the game of football. You know, something as that simple that you think that these young men and young women should know automatically really don't.
Yeah, I think so many people focus on other things besides the fundamentals, right? Especially when they're coming up through high school, and it always is good and refreshing to hear a trainer who preaches and focuses on the fundamentals, because they are so important for young athletes. And I know when we first connected, and I connect with a lot of trainers who deal with professional and high-end collegiate athletes, and you were a little bit different. So you were one of the first trainers we connected with who were dealing with high-end high school and youth athletes at the time. And you told me that you prefer to work with those athletes from the ground up before they're polished in college or the professional level, but you're trying to grow them from the very beginning. Can you talk about what it's like and the different approach that you take towards younger athletes?
Well, it's like if you get a piece of clay, before it's molded, before it's put in the kiln, like you have the opportunity to mold that clay into whatever form or figure that you choose. So when you take the time from a piece of clay and you go through the entire process, you mold it, you cure it, you put it in a kiln, you bring it back, you paint it, and now you have this fabulous piece of art. For an artist, that is like the biggest thing, you know what I mean? For someone who deals with sculptures, the finished product from a piece of clay or some concrete or whatever the material is that they have, a piece of steel, whatever it is, when they first get it, it's raw. And it's, for the most part, untouched, untapped. But when you get the opportunity to be that artist and put your hands on it and mold it to where you want it to be and where you know that it should be, and when it's all said and done, to me, that is where I get the most satisfaction. To say, oh man, I've coached that young man or that young lady for 6 years, 8 years. This young man is about to go to college, and I've had them since he was 5 years old. So I've been in his life for 13 years. You know, for me, some of the most memorable people in my life was my coaches. You know, because during a certain period of the year, we spent so much time with one another. You know, we grew to form somewhat of a bond, you know, and no matter what, that person is always coach. He has always been coach. She has always been coach. Even to this day, I'm 52 years old. If I'm lucky that they're still around, then, you know, when they see me, I'm not calling them by their name or Mr. or Mrs. such and such. It's coach, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? So for me, that's what I love. And I do coach, and I do train, or I have coached a lot of young men that are in the NFL and the NBA, Major League Baseball, and now boxing. And I love the fact that I was able to play a part in their growth. But I'm not the trainer that's going to say, look at me, look at my resume. This is who I've trained to build new clients. That's not who I am. You know what I mean? There's nothing taken away from those who that's what they do. You know what I mean? Like, that's not for me. I'm going to build I'm going to build my name. And what I have built my name off of is the fact that I take the time to teach young men and women and build them and come along with them the entire process. You know, and people say, Dad, on Swift, well, why do you do it? You know, and I still have kids that I may have coached 15 years ago, you know, and are graduating college, or about to graduate college, going to college, or going to high school. And I have parents that said, you know, Coach Swift, that I've come in contact with that has either sent me a text, a DM, or emailed me and said, such and such, when they had an opportunity that they were told that they need to write an essay, or they were told that they had to write an essay on someone who they thought was very influential in their lives. Surprisingly, my name, and it has happened quite a few times that these young men and women found it in their heart to write about me for the things that I was able to instill in them. So yeah, that's why I do what I do.
Yeah, and it must be very special to have athletes that you spend that much time with, after their journey and when they're going to college, reflecting on that journey and naming you as one of the most influential people in their lives. You become, I know you refer to them as coach, but at a certain point, when you spend that much time, like you're talking 10 plus years with some of your athletes, you're more than just a coach. You're a role model. You're, in some cases, a father figure to a lot of folks who...
And most, especially from where I'm coming from in the inner city, we have a lot of single parent homes. A lot of women, it's sad to say, but honestly, there are a lot of women who are raising young men, doesn't matter the nationality. It's just plain and point simple, whether their fathers are around, they're not around, whatever the case may be. And it gets to a point where they need that, because women can only, they can raise their sons to be young men to a certain point, and then the young men need a male figure, a male role model, a male mentor, someone to get them through the times when times get rough and you don't know, well, I might have this girl, I'm thinking about this girl, the right thing to do with the young lady or the wrong thing to do with the young lady. Because if we allow society to dictate, society will tear it down, because, everything now is about image. Everything now is about image and what's portrayed, and what you see on from the physical part of, looking at somebody. People don't meet people genuinely anymore. Everything is through social media, through DMs. I'm going to go on somebody's DM, or I'm going to meet somebody on a dating site or whatever. There's no more, you met this person out in the open. We've actually had a verbal conversation face to face or on the phone. Our first interaction is on social media. Our second interaction is on social media. Our third interaction maybe has never crossed the dinner table. It's I'm coming to pick you up, and it's no more you have to ring the doorbell for the young lady to come out or anything like that. They just come out. But when I grew up, that's not how you had to meet the parents. You had to have a conversation with the parents, and the parents might have wanted to talk to your parents or your guardian, whatever it may have been. But for me, this is what it is.
Yeah, and you are playing a huge role in a lot of young men and women, but a lot of for the males. You are a father figure to a lot of those athletes, and it doesn't go unnoticed. So, what does it mean to you when you coach a lot of these, in specifically St. Joe's Prep, when you're coaching a lot of these athletes, and you finish the year with a state championship? Like, how gratifying is that for you, that this hard work that you put in pays off?
And it's honestly, it's remarkable. It's like no other. And I'm just thankful that I had the opportunity to be able to coach at the Prep. I mean, we travel. There's no other school like our school in the city of Philadelphia. There's no other school that I know of in the country. Yeah, you have some programs that might be better, but I will put our coaching staff up against anybody. Any coaching staff, some college staffs. I mean, because of the rigorous conditioning and training that we do. The way our boys practice, it's like for 7 months out of the year, this is life. We won the state championship. The guys have about 3 weeks off. In the second week in January, we're right back into the weight room. You know what I mean? That's what separates us from a lot of other programs. We hear it when we get a lot of the Power 5 schools that come see us, and they're like, yo, you guys just keep turning them out. And we don't always have the best players. It's just about putting our players in the best situations, because we coach from the top to the bottom. And we believe it's the next man up. A lot of programs say it, but they don't believe it. We're not the program that we're up 4 or 5 touchdowns and we're leaving our starters in to pad our stats. No, we're going to bring our backups in so they have game time ability, and they have a sense of what it's like to be under the gun, and get some time on the field behind them, because of the man in front of them goes down, they need to know what it's going to be like to be out there. You know what I mean? So it's been remarkable, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't go anywhere else.
Yeah, and these aren't just, I know you said you don't always have the best players. It seems like a lot of the time, from our perspective, you have a lot of great players come through that building and through that school. Marvin Harrison Jr. is one that pops out, who graduated a few years ago, and he's one of the best receivers in the nation. He's in the college football playoff with probably the best at Ohio State. So shout out to Marvin Harrison Jr. But you have a lot of one of Jeremiah Trotter's sons. He was coming out of St. Joe's Prep, and he's a linebacker, I believe, at Clemson now. So these aren't just
All-American. Yes,
All-American. These aren't just players going to like Tier 1, like lower grade schools. These are Clemson, Ohio State, Georgia type.
These are Big Five. These are Power 5 schools that these young men attend. But just not that. The thing is that they all have the academic ability to do whatever they want. You know what I mean? Because we are an academic plus school, and if your grades, you don't get the grade, you don't play. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who you are. If you do not get the grade, you will not play. And that's just how it is. So, I mean, we're the number one private school in the state as far as academics. So it's like we have to take a test to get in. Our grading system is very, very rigorous. The academic program itself is very rigorous. So these young men are very, like, one thing they do learn is time management. So, Dre's first year was hard. And it was a time where he didn't think he was going to make it. And I was like, dude, my son's he's always been an honorable student. His first year was very tough. And I was like, look, do you want to leave? You know what I mean? Because I don't want to see you struggling. At that time, he had 4 or 5 hours worth of homework. After practice, when you get home from practice, 8:30, and this is daily. So it's not enough time. It wasn't enough time in the day. But when he graduated and went on to Georgia, he was like, man, Dad, Mom, I thank y'all. I thank y'all for putting me in this position. They're like, what are you talking about? He's like, man, I'm done my work Wednesday night, Thursday, and people are struggling Friday to try to get their work in by 12 o'clock. So they're eligible to play on Saturday. And he was like, man, I was like, yeah, the time management piece. He's like, yeah, this is a breeze. College is a breeze. And it showed when he got, out there, Scholastic All-American for the entire time that he was there. So, yeah, football is great, but academics is better. And that's one of the things that I talk about with the young men and the young women, is that they're the time of what they used to call dumb jock is over. Schools aren't taking, there are no more, for the most part, sewing classes and gym classes that you can take to pad your GPA so you're eligible to play. Colleges don't want that, because there are too many young men and young women that go out into the workforce or can't get into the workforce because they don't have the knowledge. They don't pass the bar.
Yeah, and I think that's an important lesson. And you're molding more than just athletes, but you're molding young men into, whether they go into sports as a future or not, right? They're going to have all options available from that structure and time management and that academic background. I wanted to circle back something that, myself and my co-founder, we came out for the first annual SwiftFit running back clinic that you guys hosted in Philadelphia this summer. And, you told a couple of stories there at the end when you were reflecting on, how important this was to you and, the story with, your son, DeAndre, and the way that he would always, put you in the lead or you in charge of picking all the other teammates up. And I guess that was kind of how you came into training everybody else. You're already doing it at that point. But what was that like with DeAndre growing up and always putting you in charge of being accountable for all of his teammates?
Well, it was weird because his first year playing football, first 2 days I planned on being a parent. I didn't plan on being a coach. I just wanted to be a parent. And it just so happened that I was there at the practice and I saw something that wasn't right. His godfather was one of the coaches at the time. And when I had brought something to his attention, he was like, come here for a second. And I was like, okay. So when I showed him, he was like, well, here you go. I said, what's this? He said, here's your whistle. Here's the playbook. You are now the offensive coordinator. And I was like, what? I was like, no. I just want to be a parent. He was like, no. So, I spoke with my wife, and she was like, and that's where it really started. She was like, you love the game of football. We're going to be here for Dre, and you want to make sure that he's being taught right. Well, who better to teach them? You know what I mean? You're going to make sure that he's taught, and not just teaching him. You're going to teach everybody else the right way, the way that you were taught. So go ahead down there and coop. And like I said, that's where it started. And it was to the point where I ended up buying a conversion van. If you don't know what a conversion van is, a big box van with a television and couches. It had a couch in it, captain's chairs. I had a PlayStation, DVD player in there. And I had the house that everybody came to. I would go to bed. So when I'm home, I'm in the bed early. My wife and I would like 9 o'clock. I come down in the morning, it's 8 to 10 kids all over my house, whether in the basement, they're in the living room, they're on my couch. I'm like, yo, what is going on? Oh, no, Coach Dre told us to come over so we can go work out with y'all. What? And then it just started. And we would go to games, and all the kids wanted to go in the van to the game so they could play the TV or watch whatever's on DVD at the time. And Dre, can you go pick up this person, Dad? Dad, can you go pick up that person before we go? And then as he got older, it was, Dad, can they go to the camps with us? Or can you pick this person up and take them to the camp? I'm like, well, Dre, where are their parents? Their parents can't go. I'm like, well, I'm going. Uncle Mark is going. And Mom like, why do? All right, Dre. And that's how it got as big. And the next thing people started saying the success that DeAndre was having on the field, and it was a translation from the training that we did. Whether it was track, that was his sprint coach. He ran for a gentleman named Coach Kenroy, and it was called, the name of the track club was Athletes Academy. Kenroy Wallace, who you're familiar with, that was his track coach, and then he and I befriended one another. And then there was a point that I didn't want to coach my son in every sport all the time. So what I did is I hired somebody who I knew he respected, he would listen to. So there were certain things that I may have wanted him to do, I would run him through Kenroy, or we would talk about it and find out what the best option for DeAndre was to have. So the next thing you know, we had, the top boys program in the city. We would go to Junior Olympics and we would dominate all the local track meets, and then, we would go. But that's where it started from. And, his friends staying and him being successful, and them seeing the success that he had with the training that we were doing, he and I were doing, and then myself, him, and his cousin Mark Webb, and, who's also in the league, and Nasir Adderley, who's also in the league. Like, these are, they were all on, I have 4 kids on one team who are now in the league, the little league, at 7, 8, 9 years old. I was coaching them, and now they're all in the league right now. So it was like something must be going on over there. Like they might have the formula, and I believe that it's the ground root training and the basics, me helping them take it back to the basics, the fundamentals of certain aspects of, the sport, the fundamentals of the basic training in whatever it is whatever sport it is, things that people don't do any longer, So yeah, that's I would say that's where it started from, and it would be. I had 16 people in my van at one point in time, 16 kids, They're sitting on each other, laying on each other, sit like in between each other. I don't care, Coach Swift, I'll stand up. I just want to go with y'all. And I'm like, this is crazy. We would, like I said, we would take road trips. One weekend we went to North Carolina, Clemson, Georgia, South Carolina, came back to Maryland in 4 days, and he had a 7-on-7 game in Washington, D.C. We ended up staying there for a week. So that whole week, we were going from school to school, took a trip down south, SEC, ACC, come on back, and, ended it up with him having a 7-on-7 game. Like, that's the type of stuff that we would do. He wants to go to this camp, but wants to go to that camp. So, as a parent, we want what's best for our children. We want to give our children the things that we didn't have, or we weren't accustomed to having, or we just want better for them. So that's pretty much.
Yeah, and I think that each one of those young men now would say that you had a profound impact on their athletic career, and really when you're talking about all of these young kids together on road trips and going to games together, it helps form like a bond off the field, right? And that's just as important as lifting and everything else is having that bond off the field and chemistry with one another and relationship building. So you played a big role in not just coaching and lifting and fundamentals of running backs and other athletes on the field, but you helped with every aspect of these kids' lives. And that's why so many kids have come back and in return started to write letters and mentioned you as part of a influential role in their athletic development and their development as just growing up and being around you for so much time. So just to kind of start to wrap up here, I wanted to say, so we came out to the SwiftFit clinic, the running back clinic in, I think it was July or August. That was your first annual clinic, and it was some of the best running backs. It was an exclusive event. It was some of the best running backs, invite only, from New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Where do you see this camp moving forward?
Oh, it's definitely going to be big. It's definitely going to be big. I've actually already had people contact me and ask me, when is the first one? What are my dates? So my nephew and I were speaking this morning, and we were talking about how many dates we were going to have and when we're going to start. So we're trying to tie that up. So, we just decided we were just talking about the date that we're going to start. So I see it really getting big, really getting big.
That's great, yeah. And we hope to play a role and expand that as well, in years to come. So we're really excited to hear where that goes from here. So everybody, and I know in your case, your gym has been expanding. You now have a boxing gym that you've recently opened, and you have the juice bar, and everything else has been expanding. You've come a long way since you started training and becoming a coach. What advice would you give yourself to a younger self when you were starting out, and would you change anything about that journey?
Now, hindsight is 2020. If my younger self was able to look at my older self, I would have done this earlier. I would have done this sooner. Because I owned a hair salon. I was born into the business. My family. I'm a master barber myself. I'm 52. I was cutting hair at the age of 10. My mom taught me how to cut hair at the age of 10. So, like, it's in my blood. My grandfather was the original founder of the haircut style chart. I have the blueprints in my basement. But my younger self would tell me, if my older self would tell my younger self, the path that I'm on now, I would have started earlier. Because in Philadelphia, I would say there aren't too many people doing what I'm doing now. There are gyms, but there aren't training facilities. And I only know, and I'm affiliated with the others. There's myself, there's Cameron Wallace, and there's Greg at Level 40, who I'm close with, both of them. Again, to the level of what we're doing, because we all overlap somehow. like I said, Camroy and I used to coach together. That was Dre's track coach. I introduced Camroy to Greg before Camroy opened his own facility. Camroy was working at level 40. I got Camroy position. I introduced him to Coach Gabe at St. Joe's Prep. Camroy became the track coach, the speed coach at St. Joe's Prep. So we all are intertwined somehow. Greg and I played football against each other, then with each other for about 12 years. So, we're all intertwined and overlapping of one another. But I would have started early because I believe that I had something that I could have given a lot of other young men that came before my son that just didn't had an opportunity because, one, they didn't financially have the means to pay for the training. And they didn't know what the type of training was. The training that they needed, or what we found out that they needed, was only honestly being given in outside of Philadelphia. We're going to be completely honest. Suburbs, New Jersey, anywhere but Philadelphia, anywhere but the inner city.
Yeah, and I think all three of you, Camroy and Greg, have done a great job with the type of training that you've brought to the city of Philadelphia, and you guys continue to expand. You especially with camps, and your coach at St. Joe's Prep, and your own gym is expanding. So we're excited to see where everything goes from here. But once again, it was my pleasure to have you on, Darren. Darren Swift, owner of Swift Speed and Strength Training Academy. We're going to be highlighting and letting our listeners follow along with your camps and everything else that you do in the city of Philadelphia as we go along. So once again, Darren, thanks for coming on the show.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me.